What about you? Yeah, share your experience. Yeah.
Before that, I want to ask you. You said that you interviewed Sir Kim San, and he said things which were unthinkable. I'm wondering when the unthinkable one is written, so that we can present a more rounded picture of the goal, whom I greatly admire, who I'm sure many people really admire. Is being one of the great makers of Singapore's remote.
Then maybe it shouldn't be a family member doing that. It's almost like an expert. There's a lot of self-censorship in boundaries or in any form of writing. The book that is not, the bits, after writing my book, I look at the bits that I self-censored, not the publisher, and I said, that would have been a better book. So, it's a very difficult question, Robert.
Yeah, I understand.
People also like to look at salacious aspects of someone's life. It's very human, and you try to avoid that. And try and focus on. Of course, the men have failings. I mean, we're all human. I tried to sort of show the man by the various anecdotes, which to me were very telling. For example, I know that Dr. Goh loved his men. I mean, defense was the ministry that he enjoyed the most, and he was very concerned that initially with the deaths in the army, especially the Air Force, when you fly, and senseless death of national servicemen, or even civilians. And I was told a story. It's a true story. He was in our embassy. Dr. Goh was in the London the British High Com residence on Wilton Crescent, coming down with our High Commissioner when my informer said, sir, we just received some bad news from the British. One of our fighter jets was down, crashed, And Dr. Goh says, and the pilot? And then my informer said, the pilot ejected, sir. He says, that's all right then. We'll just write off the plane. I mean, even though we had second-hand planes, I mean, it was spontaneous, I mean, he was seen as a miserly, penny pinching, penny counting minister for finance, and he would just say, let's write off the plane. And I remember once in which at dinner he was very, very quiet, almost despondent. And the next day I read in the newspaper that some Malay boys had been shot unintentionally because they were picking rambutans in an area where live firing was being done. And then announced over the radio there will be live firing. And the Malay boys didn't have a radio, and they crossed and they were shot. I mean, it's senseless, and I know that would really upset Dr. Goh. And subsequently, as a result, the Rangers then would go and clear the area with loud hailers, etc. So I guess I tried my best, but it's not easy, Robert. We can hear you. You want to just share?
We like to share the learning values, the motivation, what the factors that motivates you most to write the book. Is that some hidden side of Dr. Goh that is not known? Or is that because you find that any critics or in the papers, sometimes the journalist may write something in the articles that published quite often is in the Chinese paper or in the Switzerland. They have this column that the journalists will express certain views on certain policies. And so are you writing focus? Your focus is more on his personal life, his career or whatever, in certain aspect that you think that there are some great learning values, or what is the motivational factors before you actually want to go into the book and the reference characters, when you pick Lim Kim Sang or whoever, what is the reference? Do you think that this person has very unbiased, more neutral views that he can provide to these specific characters in your book? So how do you select the reference characters to verify whether, okay, whatever words or statements that he gave about this character in your book, like Dr. Goh, is it more justifiable and is
Sure.
it convincing enough for learning value for the future generations out there?
Yes, you have to do that selection. In the case of there was a very obvious list of people to be interviewed. People who worked with him, people who knew him.
Yeah, how do you select
based on facts. Lim Kim Sang was his good friend, was his best man at his wedding, designed his wedding suit.
Best man? His
Best man,
Oh.
yes. Went to get the shark skin textile, etc., etc. So, I mean, so these are very obvious people that you must interview, and you will, I mean, nothing to hide, you know. And they will also give you, you know, and they were in Raffles College Hospital together, okay, and shared the same room. So to Hans we said, etc. Why did I choose to write it? Because somehow I felt proprietary. I just felt that the first book, the family of a family member, need not be me. I tried to convince my husband to write it. He's a much better writer, but he says no, he's too close to the man. And maybe that's correct. Yes, he's too.
That's a very good reason.
Yes.
Given the
Yes.
family members.
So maybe a daughter-in-law is more acceptable, and anybody else can say it's what they want to say after my book. I mean, I don't care. Plus, of course, it's not just the personal aspect, because Dr. Goh, because of what he did, he was an octopus, he did so many things. I also have his 44 reels of oral history. He started the oral history project, and he had to show that, you know, how important it was. So someone interviewed him in 1982, and there are 44 reels of that. I have the transcript, and you all should be able to read that on the 14th of May this year, because his embargo was 5 years after his death, and that would be 5 years after his death. And when I wrote it in 2007, I knew that this will not be released till later, and there were bits about our history I felt that has to be said. So that compelled me to say what I said.
Yes.
So initially you worked for your younger son, who didn't know his grandfather so much. So did he read the book, and in terms of that initial purpose you had?
He did. He is now an SMU undergrad, about to graduate. I try to get him, every time I talk about Dr. Goh to the students, I do it once every semester. I tell him, I'm going to talk about your grandfather. Even now, can you please attend my talk? You know? I guess, I don't know, the bond wasn't there. So he would read it as, you know, it's I don't know. I think he read bits of my book, and now and then I said, you know, your grandfather wrote about the car policy long time ago. Read that. Oh, is that so? I mean, they all have different priorities, you know. So I may not have achieved that objective that well. But you see, I mean, years it's done. Years later, he can read about that, or read to his children about his grandfather. Yes,
And your grandchildren will be fascinated.
yes.
I wrote my husband's very complicated network of relatives, and he and his brothers and sisters weren't in the least interested. I get, oh, auntie, you know, the next generation says, oh, auntie, can I have a copy? You know, I think it will come, it'll come.
Meira, can I ask you, when you write a novel, do you know how it's going to end?
It's one of the strange things. Yes and no. Publishers always like to see plans, and I hate writing plans, but you need to write a plan. And I must say that if you do have a plan, a novel is a very complex thing, and also it's a huge weight to sustain. A novel is not written quickly, it's written over years, sometimes many years. So it is a great weight to carry. And if you have a plan, it's wonderful to be able to look at the page and say, oh yes, this is where I'm supposed to be. So in that sense, that structure, that grid is a great help. Having said that, yes, you should know in the kind of direction you want to head when you set off. And an analogy I always give people, young writers, is that it's very difficult to explain. You're writing with your conscious mind, you're also writing with your unconscious mind. So a novel in the beginning is like an aeroplane taxiing down a runway. And at some point there has to be liftoff. And that liftoff is the moment when you hand your novel over from your conscious mind to your unconscious mind. And your unconscious mind is always far, far wiser than your conscious mind. And I'm always amazed that when I get to the end of a book, I may be on some far shore that I never thought I would end up on. But from the first word, my unconscious mind has known in which direction it's been going, even though I've not been consciously aware of that, and I've had some other destination. So it's a very strange process, very difficult to explain. So yes, you should know where you're going to, you should know your end, but if you don't always get to that end, you maybe go off somewhere completely different. And that's a good thing.
Your characters, do you take the step back, or have you ever get so involved with them that you feel that they're living them, you're them?
She lives with the characters.
It sounds strange, but the fictional world and the fictional people become to me almost more real than the reality of the people around me. They're very alive. They're very real to me. And many people ask me, where do your characters come from? How do you create characters? And I feel that, they say everybody is a village. So you have all the experiences within you that you've experienced. You have all the things you've seen in your life, you've heard in your life, you've seen out of the corner of your eye. Bits of conversation you've picked up. Everything is within you. And a writer, I think, has the ability, perhaps more than most people, to reach down into yourself and bring up those memories, in a sense, that are all kinds of different people within us. We're not all the nice people we present to the world. We have other facets within ourselves.
Can I just add about ending, Jean? You don't have to know how you end your novel, but the overarching, the framework has to be there. One of the most perfect books I've read in terms of plot is Khalid Hosseini's The Kite Runner, and made into a movie. How he starts at the present and then he goes through, you know, with his development, and the ending was just perfect. There's complete resolution at the end, involving all those characters. And sometimes when you see a movie, right, you end up, you know, after the movie, still rooted to your chair because you're trying to sort of say, wow. I mean, you know, I mean, it's everything becomes a whole. I asked my mentor. I went to a workshop in Assisi some 2 years ago because I didn't know how to end my novella that I was writing, and that's what I'm telling you her answer. Okay. And there I was walking around in Assisi and looking at all the monks, you know, lots of monks in Assisi. And one day it just dawned on me, that's right, my central character, who's an assassin, he got converted to becoming a monk. And it was just right. so you must know roughly how it will end, but the exact ending will come to you. Someday, somehow, you hope.
Could I just add a comment? I've actually worked for a publishing house in Mexico, and so I'm involved with authors, and especially with creative writing and fiction authors. This happens sometimes. To do also the question on character, I say, well, you know, I don't want to name names, but I'm talking to the author, and I'm going, I don't know, this doesn't seem to gel with this particular character. And some of them really stick up for themselves. They're going, no, that's how he sounds in my head. You know, to them that character is very real, and that's how he speaks. And then we have this little diplomatic dance, and I say, well, why don't we take a week off? You know, you read your book again, you read that bit again, and see how it seems to you. It seems to me like he was developing this way, and then this happened.
And but how would it be resolved usually?
Well, I have to say that they're very kind. Most of the authors I've had.
They would amend for you.
know, sometimes they'll come back in a few days or whatever. It hardly ever happens that somebody says, no, this is how I want it. And also about endings. It's been sometimes, you know, it's like, I mean, I see my role as somebody who's there to advise or suggest. I'm the everyman reader before it's out in the world as a published book. And I say, well, this is how it strikes me. And they will go back and think about it. And there are authors who have changed it. So, as you say, it's a very organic thing, I think. And it sort of develops in almost in ways that you haven't envisaged right at the beginning.
In fact, I would support workshops, you know. I don't know how many of you are interested in writing workshops. My workshop was for 2 weeks. Every day, 1 to 4, we would all be asked to read a small class, only 4 of us. And I thought it was a silly novella that I was doing for my grandson. But they liked the character, Paul. I was amazed. And they were not putting on a show. And they wanted to read the next chapter and the next chapter. There's nothing like what we're trying to create here. A community of writers, you know, sharing. Sometimes you're so shy, you're so embarrassed by what you think that what you've written is not worth it. And yet, you know, I mean, when others, you know, like what you read and they also help to fashion your character. It's a wonderful thing, these workshops. How many of you would be interested to attend workshops like that?
I want, it's for both of you, I want to understand discipline, creativeness. Can it be controlled? Can you discipline your creativeness? Is there a certain time of the day where you are more creative? And can you discipline yourself to sit down, or do you just write when, you know, do you have is there time where you feel like you have not written, but your creativeness just couldn't flow? So I'd like to know from both of your experience, can you discipline your creativeness?
If you sit around waiting for the muse, the muse will never come. The inspiration comes when you're working. I'm a very committed, disciplined writer. I write every day. I start at 10. I go home somewhere around 3 or 4 o'clock. Much of that time may be spent looking out of the window, but to me that's still work. So I'm a very compulsive writer, and it's important to me that I'm able to write every day. But I'm in a lucky position in that I can do that. There are many people who have to hold down a job plus write, and that becomes very much a very difficult position for many people. I have a lot of young writers who come to me who are in that position. They have demanding jobs, but they want to write. And they're too exhausted at the end of the day to sit down with large blocks of time and write. And I tell them it doesn't matter. Write a paragraph, write 2 paragraphs, but write every day. Doesn't matter how little, but do every day. Hemingway had a very nice way of putting it. He said that the writing muscle must be exercised every day. So that's what I do. Siok-san?
I can attest to Meira's discipline. Whenever I ask her out for lunch, she says, "No, Siok-san, lunch will eat into my day. Can we have tea? By 4 o'clock, I need adult company. Come over at tea time." And I've passed this to another writer, and she said she stuck to that. She says, Meira's right. I didn't say it was for Meira. Right, no lunches, cut up all your lunches. You just don't want to be going to town, and it just takes time. And you have to write, never mind whether it's 50 words or 500 words, multiply that by 100 days, one day you get a book.
Have you ever had writer's block? Or can you tell us about writer's block? Yes, I have writer's block, but I just sit through it and it goes away.
It should be an excuse, yeah?
No.
It can be an excuse.
Do you write one novel at a time, or are you able to?
I'm very bad at multitasking. There are people that will write several things at once. I can't do that. I write one thing at a time, whether that be a short story or something that I need to just focus on the one thing.
Yes, I also cannot multitask. Yes.
Of course you don't.
Not when it comes to writing. But the discipline in writing is just tremendous, actually. It's quite a responsibility. But you just have to write.
So daunting.
I do encourage you to please write down that history. I think these personal histories are so absolutely important. And if you don't do it, it's lost. It's lost to time, and your grandchildren will never know. I would very much now like to, at this age, write about my father's life, of which I was not interested in earlier years. But, children never ask questions, and not all parents tell their children. There's a kind of given between children and parents that enough's enough, that you don't have to tell them everything. And I know my father had an incredibly interesting, dramatic life at a very important time in history, but he never told us much about it. And it's gone. It's just gone. So if you can't write it, speak it into a dictaphone, and then that can be transcribed later on, because that's much easier to do. Just snatches of thought and things. But I think it's very important that these personal histories are documented for the next generation.
Now we've got on to family histories. If possible, try and write while some of the old people are still around. I only wrote
I'd had a lot of, you know, I come from a very chatty part of England, and I'd had a lot of chat with my in-laws, but I only wrote after they'd gone. And then it's only when you write you think, oh, I wonder. It's too late, you can't get the answer. But I think if we think about it at this particular day and age, people and their children are finishing up so far from their original roots. You know, I mean, I've talked to somebody who had a relative who was in Vladivostok, you know, some other people who've got children who are in South America. And after they marry and then their children go somewhere else, when they say, who am I? The only thing that doesn't change is your ancestry. And therefore I feel sort of for mental health, people need to have
Well, I think what you say is quite right, Anne. There's never been a time in history where there's been migration on the scale that there has been this century, and that is alone has changed the world. So please, anyone with a family history, you need to document that. And everyone has a family history.
Certainly encourage Singaporeans and foreigners living here to write, because I think there is such a treasure house of good stories in Singapore, and I think there's maybe a fear that, well, either I'm not capable of writing it, or maybe the story can't be told or shouldn't be told. But I think, as both the writers here have said, there's so much to be achieved by doing this. And I had the experience of, as everyone knows, of writing about a very well-known Singaporean recently, and he didn't want to write his own memoir, he didn't want to write his own story, but was happy for me to do it. But it was quite a challenge, because at times he said, well, maybe we shouldn't say that, maybe we shouldn't put that in. I had to persuade him at times that these things have to be said, but they can be said in a way that's not going to offend anyone. They should still be told. So,
Whom is he?
Lynch and Matt.
Oh, okay, I thought so.
So, yeah, but it was interesting, because he's just one of many Singaporeans who has a great story, not only on the corporate side, but his life and his experience and his attitude to life.
When I told my father-in-law I'm going to write, can I sought his permission to write about him, he laughed. Ha ha ha! Who will want to read? I mean, it's genuine. They thought that their life story is not worthwhile, you know, reading about. I would like to write about Jean Marshall. a girl from which part of England was it?
Kent.
From Kent. I mean, in the 50s, when she saw an advertisement that says, you know, nurses required or something, and she ended up in Kelantan. I mean, Pahang, yes, sorry, Pahang. So there you are. I mean, there are lovely stories. And a plug for Dr. Goh. He knew that people would always say, well, I'm not a writer. So he started the oral history project. But people are prepared to answer questions. Get someone to interview, and then the person, and it's recorded. And they can be very expensive, you know, when they start talking. You know. So I mean, oral history, you know, short little videos, you know.
I would just like to say that I'm eternally grateful to Dr. Goh for initiating the Department of Oral History of the Archives, because while I was writing A Different Sky, it was one of the most valuable resources for research for me. And what was valuable was it's been marvelously documented. You know, every community, a whole spectrum of people has been gone through. Chinese community, from rickshaw runners and prostitutes right through to Minister Mentor. Absolutely marvelous documentation. And it was wonderful to have transcripts of interviews to take home. But what I liked most was to put on the headphones and hear these stories coming at me, story after story. And those stories allowed me, because when I wrote this book, I was new to Singapore. I knew nothing of the country, the culture, the history. what I had to do through research was to build a memory on other people's memories, a memory that I could reach down into and use. So those histories, those stories, it was a long process, but they allowed me to build a memory that felt like my own, but it was built on the memories of other people and all through the oral history department. So I'm eternally grateful. So please record your histories. Don't let anything go.
Ken,
You'll be supported.
very quickly.
At the National Library, Gopal and I are going to be talking about the Luncheon book, about the experience of working on it and the experience of writing the biography about someone who is still alive. And of course, Gopal did Bernard Harrison over a year ago. So it's at the National Library at 7 o'clock on the 5th of March. Next week, so if anyone's coming on, it's a free session. You're not obligated to buy a book or pay or anything else.
Thanks. Final comment?
I just want to say that I thought Meira's advice to people starting to write about talking freely into a particular corner and then they just want to transcribe it is a very good idea. But I just thought to open up an alternative. I published my memoirs 2 years ago, and what got me going, and this advice might be useful for first-time writers who find it very daunting, but probably start with objects that are associated with your family. I started with objects like air letters that I received when I was a student in London, my parents' birth certificate, stories about my father who was a village champion, and there were his trophies lying in my cupboard, you know. I've written plays and there were programs and tickets. And I just thought that if you can assemble all these objects associated with your subject or with yourself, if you're writing an autobiography, that would be a good start, because each object will tell you a story. And one which I thought of in connection with the launching of my book, to bring all these objects as exhibits that could get you writing. So I thought that might be something to think about. Thank you.
Thank you, and that's what Writer is talking exactly about. I remember a time when I was a student of literature, and one of the things we used to delight in was to go to biographies or just letters of these authors, and it was fascinating to sort of read what was made public, and then 30, 40 years later read again what now was made public, which radically revised your memory of the memory. And that's very, very interesting. But in today's instant digital world, I mean, even an audience like this, people can go off and say, I've just come back from, Writers Talking where so-and-so said this, Siok said that, Meira said that, Professor said that, Dean said that. I think this is the way a nation builds a repository of conversations. I am very cognizant of the fact that the Google guy the other day said that if we are not careful, our younger generation is going to enter a new dark age, the digital dark age. Because once the things get wiped off from the machines, there's going to be no physical memory. So I think it's still a good idea to write it, actually, write a letter to somebody, a dying art. But hey, thanks a lot. Can we show our appreciation to everyone?